The billionaire's daughter found her maid crying. What she did next shocked everyone. Rain pounded the windows of the enormous mansion, making the marble floors shine like silver. Hannah Whitmore, the two-year-old daughter of billionaire Robert Whitmore, stormed down the grand staircase, her long brown hair whipping across her shoulders. She had just come back from a disastrous business meeting where her father had humiliated her in front of everyone. Her chest heaved with frustration, and she felt her anger boiling over. But then she heard something she hadn't expected, a quiet, muffled sob coming from the kitchen. Her footsteps faltered. The kitchen was usually spotless and empty this late at night, and there she was. Martha, the Whitmore's maid, sat on the floor, her back against the refrigerator, shoulders shaking as silent tears streaked her worn cheeks. The small woman's uniform was soaked from the rain that had leaked through a small window, and a broken plate lay beside her. Hannah froze. No one had ever seen Martha like this. The maid had always been steady, cheerful, and polite, even when the work was grueling. Seeing her cry like this made something inside Hannah twist, a mix of fear, curiosity, and concern. "Mrs. Whitmore?" Martha whispered. But her voice cracked and dissolved into another sob. Hannah's anger evaporated instantly. She knelt beside Martha, her heels clicking on the wet marble. "Martha, what's wrong?" Martha shook her head violently. It's nothing, Miss Hannah. I don't want to trouble you." But Hannah didn't back away. Instead, she did something shocking. She gently took Martha's hands in her own and held them. The maid's hands were rough, worn from years of hard work, and trembled under Hannah's soft grip. "Martha, I don't care. Tell me." For a moment, silence hung over the kitchen, heavy and tense, until finally, Martha whispered through her tears, "It's my daughter. She's sick." "The hospital. They say the treatment. It's expensive. I don't know how. I don't know what to do." Hannah's chest tightened. She knew Martha's salary wasn't enough for a small emergency, let alone a serious illness. And yet, this woman had spent years taking care of their home, protecting Hannah from herself, even when she didn't realize it. Martha had never complained, never asked for favors. Hannah's mind raced. She thought about the piles of money her father had, the way he flaunted wealth like it was air. And then she looked at Martha, broken and crying, feeling powerless. She wanted to do something. But what? And then she did something no one expected. Hannah grabbed her phone and didn't hesitate. "Martha, show me everything. Every medical bill, every note from the doctors, everything. I'll handle it. I promise." Martha's eyes widened in disbelief. "Miss Hannah, you don't have to. You really don't." "I do," Hannah said firmly, her voice shaking just slightly with emotion. "You've been there for me, for this family. Now let me be there for you." Martha buried her face in her hands again, sobbing, but this time there was a sound of relief mixed with her tears. But the moment wasn't just emotional, it was also tense. Hannah knew her father, Robert Whitmore, was not the type to approve of spending money like this without questioning. And if he found out, there would be anger, lectures, and consequences. Yet, for the first time in her life, Hannah didn't care. She wanted to help, and she would find a way. The storm outside grew louder, the wind rattling the kitchen windows, as if echoing the storm inside Hannah's heart. She didn't notice the time passing. She didn't care about the marble floors or the expensive artwork. All that mattered was Martha, her quiet, loyal maid, sitting on the cold floor and crying like a child. Then, Hannah did something even more shocking. She picked Martha up, careful but determined, and carried her to the living room. She wrapped her in a thick blanket, sat her down, and didn't say anything for a few minutes, just let her cry. And while Martha cried, Hannah began making calls. She contacted hospitals, arranged doctors, and even found a specialist who could see Martha's daughter immediately. It wasn't just money. It was urgency, kindness, and determination, all rolled into one. By the time the rain slowed outside, Hannah had taken control of the situation, and Martha's sobs had turned into quiet sniffles of relief. But the night was far from over. Just as Hannah hung up the phone after arranging a late-night emergency transport for Martha's daughter, the front door burst open. A tall figure, dripping wet from the storm, strode in. It was Robert Whitmore himself. His eyes were sharp, his jaw tight. "Hannah, what on earth are you doing?" Hannah turned slowly, a mix of fear and resolve in her eyes. "I'm helping someone, Dad. Someone who needs it." Robert's face twisted in shock and disbelief. "Helping? You're spending my money? At this hour?" Hannah held her ground. "Yes, Dad, and I'll do it again if I have to. Martha has been loyal to this family for years. Now it's our turn to help her." Robert Whitmore's face grew red with anger. He took a step forward, but something in Hannah's eyes, something bold, kind, and unflinching made him pause. And at that exact moment, a soft whimper came from the blanket beside Hannah. Martha looked up, fear and hope dancing in her eyes. "Miss Hannah, you really mean it?" Hannah smiled, tears in her own eyes. "Every word, I promise. Every word." But Robert wasn't done yet. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words that would come out next would shock everyone in the Whitmore mansion and change Hannah's life forever. The storm outside had stopped, but inside, a storm was just beginning, and the question hung in the air like lightning. Would Robert Whitmore finally accept Hannah's act of kindness, or would this decision tear their family apart? Robert Whitmore stood frozen in the living room, his expensive shoes dripping on the marble floor. He was a man used to control, used to being obeyed, but right now, he couldn't find the words. Hannah held Martha's hands tightly, her heart pounding, refusing to back down. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, Martha spoke. "Sir, I never asked for anything. I've just done my job. I'm sorry if I caused any trouble." Robert's eyes softened just a fraction. He glanced at Hannah, who had tears glistening in her brown eyes. She looked back at him with unwavering determination. "Dad," Hannah said quietly but firmly, "this isn't trouble. This is right. Martha's daughter is sick. She needs help, and she's spent years helping us. Isn't it time we help her?" Robert's mouth opened, then closed. He took a deep breath, looking at his daughter, really looking at her for the first time as an adult capable of making her own choices. And slowly, something in him shifted. He nodded, almost reluctantly, then whispered, "All right. I trust you, Hannah. Do what you need to do." Hannah's eyes widened in disbelief. She had expected an argument, a lecture, maybe even a scolding. But her father had given her the green light. She smiled, a mix of relief and triumph. The very next hour was a whirlwind. Hannah personally accompanied Martha to the hospital, carrying every bill, form, and paper needed to ensure her daughter got immediate treatment. The hospital staff were impressed by Hannah's decisiveness and kindness, and they began treatment right away. As Martha watched her daughter being cared for, tears flowed freely down her face. She couldn't speak. She could only shake her head in disbelief and hug Hannah tightly. I don't know how to thank you," Martha whispered. You've changed my life tonight." Hannah hugged her back, her own tears falling. "No need to thank me. You deserve this. And don't forget, kindness always comes back." Back at the mansion, Robert Whitmore sat in his study, staring out at the night sky. He thought about his daughter's courage, her heart, and how she had done what he could never force him to do, act with empathy without hesitation. For the first time, he felt pride not for her business acumen or grades, but for her goodness. Meanwhile, Hannah returned home late that night, exhausted but happy. She found Martha sitting on the kitchen floor again, but this time, she was smiling softly, a small blanket wrapped around her daughter who was now resting safely. Hannah sat beside her. "How's she doing?" Martha's eyes sparkled. "Better. Much better. Thanks to you, Miss Hannah." Hannah smiled. "Call me Hannah. You're family now. And family looks out for each other." A warmth spread through the room. For the first time in a long time, Martha didn't feel small or invisible, and Hannah didn't feel powerless. They had both found strength in each other, a bond that no amount of money or privilege could ever replace. Days passed, and the story of Hannah's act of kindness quietly spread through the Whitmore mansion staff. She didn't brag or show off. She simply continued helping wherever she could, quietly, compassionately, and fiercely. Robert, too, had changed. He began to notice the small acts of loyalty and love around him from Martha, from the staff, and especially from his daughter. He realized that wealth was meaningless without heart, and heart was what Hannah had in abundance. And as for Martha, she never forgot that rainy night. She often told her daughter, "Someone like you can't believe in luck alone. Sometimes the right people show up at the right time." And that night, Hannah Whitmore was that person. Hannah herself learned something too. She learned that courage wasn't about shouting or making grand gestures in public. Courage could be quiet. Courage could be love in action. And courage could shock the world in the gentlest, most beautiful way. Weeks later, Martha's daughter fully recovered. The Whitmore family became closer, their relationships deeper and more meaningful. And Hannah? She became known not just as a billionaire's daughter, but as a young woman who reminded everyone that true power isn't money, influence, or status. True power is kindness, empathy, and the courage to help those who need it most. Moral lesson of this story: even in a world filled with wealth, fame, and appearances, it's the small acts of love and courage that leave the biggest impact. Helping others, forgiving freely, and acting with compassion can shock everyone, but in the most beautiful way. And from that day on, Hannah, Martha, and her daughter shared a bond that money could never buy, one built on trust, loyalty, and unconditional kindness.